Hi, I'm Emily and welcome to the Pepper Knits Knitting Podcast. I am a knitter based in Perth in Western Australia and thank you for joining me for episode 15. I have 4 works in progress to share today. I only have one finished object that I don't even have with me to share, unfortunately, but I have 4 whips and I think 3 of them I haven't shared on the podcast before, so let's jump right into what I have to share. I'll quickly talk about what I'm wearing. This is the 9pm tank designed by Tiff Knit, and this is knit in Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino in the colour Mauve. This was the first one that I made and I get so much wear out of this every spring and summer. It is finally starting to feel a bit more like spring here. We have some beautiful sunny weather. I think the whole of next week we have no rain forecast, so I'm looking forward to being able to wear some of my warmer weather knits. Quickly, here is a better look of the tank top. I think I've shared this plenty of times before. So my finished object for today are the pair of socks that I knit for my dad for Father's Day. I used the slip knit sock pattern. I think it's by Yarnspirations or Patterns or something. It was a free pattern and I knit them in some leftover sock yarn that I had in these really nice blue colours. I already gave them to my dad and he was really happy with them. He said he really liked the colours. I can share the photos that he sent me of him wearing them that evening, so I was really glad that they fit and he liked them. That's my only finished object, so let's move on to my first work in progress. So my first whip is one that I had shared in my previous episode and it is my Maria sweater. So this is a beautiful sweater that is designed by Claudia from Unit Toronto, and it is part of their new book that is coming out called Memory Lane. They very kindly gifted me the pattern to be able to preview knit this design. I'll be honest and say that I haven't worked on it a huge amount since I last filmed an episode, but as you can see, I do have one sleeve on at the moment. Before I get into all of the details, I'm knitting this in the Juniper Moon Farm Harriet Fine yarn, and I think it is an 80% alpaca, 20% nylon sock yarn. So it is really soft and drapey and I've really been enjoying working with an alpaca yarn. When I last shared this, I think I had knit the whole body and I was working on one of the sleeves. So obviously since then I have pretty much knit the entire sleeve. This is actually the second time I've knit this whole sleeve. I knit the first sleeve on the same needles as I did for the body, which is a 2.75mm, and I managed to get gauge on the body for that, but I think knitting on such a small circumference must have tightened up my gauge quite a bit, and for some reason I didn't try it on as I was going. I kind of thought that it would be a little bit tight just based on how it was looking, and I thought, oh, probably blocking will fix that. Alpaca grows quite a lot and my swatch did grow, and in a bigger piece of fabric that might grow even bigger. So I knit the whole first sleeve, and when I tried it on, I was like, that's gonna need a lot of growing with blocking to be able to fit comfortably. It was really tight around my arm. It had negative ease around my bicep, which is just not very comfortable. And it was also really short, like it probably finished like about where these sleeves finish. I did block the whole thing just to see how it was looking and to check my gauge, and also because I was desperate to block out all of this color work, which I think looks even more beautiful now that it's been wet blocked. That also did fix the flipping of the folded hem that I was experiencing on the body, and also neatened out the collar a little bit. The sleeve was unfortunately still way too tight and short, so I did have to rip back the whole sleeve. That did mean that I got to redo the short rows and the shaping for the sleeve cap. So the sleeve cap is beautifully shaped with short rows, and I did speak in my last episode that I'm not such a fan of the wrap and turns that I used in the pattern, so I did swap out the wrap and turns to German short rows. This was the first time I'd done that. I knew that there would be some kind of shuffling around with the stitches to make sure that you're turning at the correct point. So I did look up a tutorial. I think it was by Patty Lyons. It was actually really simple to do, and I think it's one of those techniques that if you don't overthink it, it will be not a big deal. If it was even one stitch off, especially at such a fine gauge like this is knit at, it probably won't affect the shaping too much. But yeah, it was really easy to do, and I much prefer the look of the German short rows. The way I do wrap and turns just doesn't look as neat, and I don't enjoy knitting them. I found that I very easily knit past the turn. It just doesn't seem as obvious when I was knitting compared to a German short row, and it's just what I'm used to knitting, so I was happy to be able to rip back the sleeve and swap it in a technique that I prefer. So I managed to knit the rest of the sleeve again, and I think this only took me a couple of days. It's not a huge amount of knitting because the sleeve is fairly fitted. I think this has a tiny bit of positive ease close to neutral at my bicep and goes into a little bit more positive ease down towards the cuff. As you can see, it's not actually bound off yet. This is finished with a really nice folded edge as well with a pearl bump for, but I just have the stitches live still and I haven't sewn it down just yet. I wanted to reblock it to check that I was happy with the length and the size before I had done the sewn bind off, and that would take forever to undo. I have wet blocked the sleeve again just to check the length before I bound it off, and I've tried it on since, but I honestly can't really remember if I was happy with it or not. The fact that I haven't bound it off makes me think that maybe it was still a little bit short. Let me just try it on and then we can figure this bit out together. Now that I have this on, I can definitely feel that there's not really much ease at all in the sleeve, even further down here. Definitely up at my bicep is close to neutral, maybe a tiny bit of negative ease. I do think that it suits the overall style of the garment, so it's not uncomfortable, and because this is such a soft yarn, it's not bothering me at all at the moment. The sleeve is still a tiny bit too short. I think this is why I didn't bind it off, because once I fold this up, it's gonna be too short. The colorwork on the body just looks so good. Wet blocking kind of fixed the issue I was having with the bubbling. It's still a little bit on this side, but I think I might just have to steam block this flat to fix that up. From memory, I double checked my stitch and row gauge when I had blocked this after knitting it on the 3mm needles, and I have a feeling it was correct, but that doesn't really make sense if it's too tight and too short. I'm not sure if I want to go up another needle size for the sleeve, just because I like how the fabric looks. Like the density of the fabric on the body is very similar to the sleeve, so I don't really want a sleeve with bigger stitches that would be like visually quite obvious. So yeah, I think that's why this has been on hold, because I've already knit this sleeve twice and it looks like I'm gonna have to knit it a third time. I was thinking, oh, perhaps it's only like a few centimeters off and I would just wait for the alpaca to grow as it naturally does. But yeah, that seems like it's going to be a little bit too much. I would have really liked to have had this done by now, because I don't think there's going to be much more opportunity for me to wear this before it gets too warm. I could also potentially put this into hibernation and then have it ready to go for next autumn and winter. I haven't done that before. I usually will finish a work in progress even if it's out of season. But yeah, I'm just not really in the mood for working on this now. It's kind of in the naughty corner because of the sleeve. If I end up just wanting to work on summer knits over the summer and don't really feel like picking up a sweater, then perhaps I will just leave it until next autumn. I think I'm just going to set this aside until I make a decision on what I want to do. I have a couple of options. I could either just leave it and wait for the alpaca to just naturally grow and then see how it fits, but then I'm going to have to wear it at least a few times with a really short and slightly too fitted sleeve. I could either then rip it out and knit a larger size sleeve. That's something I'm considered doing, going up to maybe the third size for the sleeve, which might mean picking up more stitches and give me a little bit more room in the bicep area. Or I could knit the size 2 sleeve again and just leave a little bit more room between the decreases and get the extra length and width that way. I do still think this is a beautiful design, as with all of the patterns that are in the Memory Lane book. I definitely will finish this. It might just be on the back burner for a little while until I am ready to pick it back up again. Another one of Claudia's designs caught my eye recently, and it is the Meridian dress. It is this beautiful textured dress with long sleeves and a mini skirt, and I think it was released in October last year, so it's not a new design. I saw it over on Instagram and I think it's a beautiful dress. If I lived in a cooler climate, I would consider knitting it. It's just not something I would get a lot of wear out of. They have a 50% off discount code until tomorrow, which is Monday the 9th of September. I think the code is Meridian 2024, but I'll make sure to leave it in the description if you're interested in getting that pattern. My next whip is a design that I have shared before on the podcast, but I'm knitting up another pair of Sasky socks. These are designed by the Petite Knitter, and they are these really cute little colorwork socks. I've already spoken a few times to say that I've been wanting to cast on another pair, so I have almost finished the first sock. I'm just working the afterthought heel at the moment. I'm probably almost halfway through the decreases. I'm not sure why I have stopped the heel here. I haven't picked these up in like a week, so I should just finish this heel and get the second sock going. This would only take me like an hour or so to finish this sock, so I do need to sit down and finish this heel and get the second one going. This is a gift knit for my cousin, and I'm knitting them in this opal 4-ply sock yarn, which I'm really enjoying for Colourworks socks. It is nice and soft yarn, but it's still toothy enough to not feel like it's going to pill or get holes in it too easily, and I really love all of the stitch definition that you get in the Colourwork. I'm knitting the 72 stitch size just to make sure that there is definitely going to be enough room, because this is all over Colourwork. There's not a huge amount of stretch with all of the floats going on the inside. I'm really impressed with how my Colourwork is looking for these socks. I think the stitches look super crisp and you can really tell what the motifs are. I am even pretty impressed with how the sides are looking where I've been knitting these on Magic Loop. It's not perfect, especially on this side, but I think each pair of socks that I'm knitting is looking better and better, so I'll take that as a win. I think the main thing that has helped my Colourwork knitting, and it's the first time I've done this, but I have been knitting these inside out. This is a tip that Chloe from A Big Knit very kindly left in the comments on, I think on my last video or the one before, and I thought I would give it a go for these socks. It was so easy to do. There was no changing around of stitches or other things that I've seen can help with Colourwork knitting on Magic Loop. Yeah, it was super easy to do, and I think it's something I'm going to do from now on when I'm knitting in small circumference doing Colourwork. So thank you very much for leaving that tip. I also shared it with my Knit Night group as I was working on these last time I went, so it was nice to be able to share that tip with other people as well. The next work in progress I want to share is my Salty Days sweater, which is designed by Veronica Lindberg, also known as Katoba Kika. This is a beautiful all over textured stitch drop shoulder construction sweater, and I am loving how it's looking so far. I'm knitting the first size of this pattern and I am using 2 strands held together. So the first strand is the John Arbon Devonia 4-ply yarn in the colour Devonia Cream, and I am holding this with a very special second strand. This is the Merino Lace yarn by Hedgehog Fibers in just one of their potluck colorways. I bought this yarn when I visited Hedgehog Fibers in Cork. I actually bought this the same day that we got engaged, so it does have a little bit of a sentimental feeling attached to it, but I am glad that I can actually knit with it and make it into something that I can wear. So I made a decision to hold these 2 yarns together. The Devonia I actually bought to knit a wrap cardigan for my wedding, but it's just a little bit too yellowy cream compared to the fabric I have for my dress, and I just wasn't really loving how it was looking when I was swatching it. So I had a backup plan of holding these together, and I was really itching to cast something on. I originally thought that I would want this knit in a plain stockinette sweater where you could just really see all of the colours and there was nothing fussy going on. I spent like a day doing some swatches at different gauges, and I just wasn't loving how the stockinette fabric was looking. I think because this does have quite long colour changes, I just didn't love how the fabric was coming out. I was just thinking that this might look a little bit better in an all over textured knit. I was actually very close to casting on either the Ingrid sweater or the Storm sweater by Petite Knit. They are very similar in terms of having the horizontal panels of different stitches. I was looking on Instagram and I saw so many people participating in this Salty Days cowl, which is hosted by Morgan from Morgan Unraveled and Hayley from Hayley Space. I've been following both of them on YouTube for a little while now, and I really enjoy watching their videos. I was seeing everyone cast on their Salty Days sweater on Instagram, and it just clicked that that would be the perfect pattern for these 2 yarns. I was a bit worried that I wouldn't meet gauge because it is designed with a DK and a lace held together, or just a DK by itself. The Devonia is a 4-ply yarn and then obviously held with a lace. I wasn't sure if I would meet gauge because the Devonia blooms so nicely and fluffs up and fills in all the spaces. I managed to meet gauge. So I went ahead and cast on, and I've really been enjoying participating in the cowl. I am vlogging the whole process of knitting this, so I won't go into too many details and share everything. I'll save it for that video. So I've knit through the yoke and joined in the round for the body, and I also picked up and knit the collar, and I think that looks really good. I have modified to just do a single fold collar instead of the double folded collar like in the pattern, but apart from that I think I'm pretty much following everything as written in the pattern. This is knit on 5mm needles, so it feels like it's going by very quickly, especially compared to my Maria sweater, which is on tiny little 2.75mm needles. So it's nice to feel like I'm making lots of progress on this very quickly. The back does look a little bit better because this has all been wet blocked, especially this ribbing pattern here, which is 2x1 rib. Looks really horrible before it's blocked. This is how the front's looking, which I very lightly steam blocked, and it still doesn't look great in comparison to once it's wet blocked. I got a little bit nervous and I wanted to wet block it just to check that my gauge swatch didn't lie to me, because it was looking super scruffy before, but at least now I have the confidence that once I wet block all of this, it will make it look a lot neater. So far I have knit the 2x1 rib, and then you do this beautiful diamond lace texture, and it's also broken up with these eyelet rows, which I think is really effective. I really enjoy working these, and I think it's a good way to break up each section. Then you knit the cables, and this was okay to knit. It wasn't the most enjoyable. I don't love working cables. I was practicing doing this without a cable needle, so that did help make it a little bit more enjoyable, but I was kind of glad when that section was done. So now I'm just repeating this diamond lace pattern, and I haven't checked the pattern further than that. I have a feeling this cable section is included again in the body, or at least definitely I'll have to knit it again for the sleeves, but you know, it wasn't that bad to knit. So I was a little bit nervous about using such a colourful variegated yarn in a textured knit like this, but I actually think it looks really good. It's really fun. It's a little bit different. The ones that I'd seen on Ravelry were all in solid colours. I didn't find too many that were knit in variegated yarn. So it was a little bit of a risk, as much risk as you can take when you're knitting your own sweater. But yeah, I'm super happy with how it's looking. I think it will be a really nice piece for springtime. Because I'm knitting it in a 4-ply and a lace held together, it is super light and airy. It's not a dense fabric at all, so I think the light fabric and the beautiful pastel colours will make for a perfect springtime sweater. At the moment I am enjoying working on this a lot more than my Maria sweater, so I think I will try and prioritize finishing this one before we get into full-on summer, so hopefully I can squeeze out one last sweater before it gets way too hot. This is the first time I've participated in a knit along, and it's really fun. I'm really enjoying it so far. It's really nice to see everybody else's versions, and people are also sharing all of their tips and tricks, and if people get stuck on sections, it's really nice that they have that support of other knitters who are doing it at the same time as them. Hayley and Morgan are also hosting some Zoom knitting sessions for everyone to participate and knit along on the sweater, which is really fun. The first one was this morning, but I didn't go to it just with the time difference of me on the West Coast. It didn't work out. It was a little bit too early for me to be up and ready on a Sunday morning, so hopefully the next one will be a little bit later and I can participate. It's actually been really fun to vlog the process of knitting this. I have never done anything like that before, and I don't really know what I'm doing, but hopefully you'll enjoy it as well. I can also share a lot more of the details and the process of knitting this, so I think it will be good to be more involved in a project as I'm knitting it and encountering any problems as I go, rather than sharing in a podcast. Usually I just share any of the more major issues that I've had rather than the process along the way. So hopefully you'll enjoy watching that video as much as I'm enjoying making it. My final work in progress is a bit of a spontaneous cast on. I cast this on Friday and it's pretty much almost finished, but it is this really cute little baby onesie. I'm knitting this for our next door neighbour who is expecting at the end of December. And because that will be going into the middle of summer, I did want to knit something for baby, but wanted it to be a bit more weather appropriate. I have a huge amount of cotton and cotton blend scraps in my stash from my earlier days of knitting, and I thought it would be good to go through them and knit something more summery for baby. So the main colour that I have is the Drops Saffron, which I frogged from a summer tank top, and I knit some of it into a little bag, but I had quite a bit left over and I thought this would be perfect for a little summer onesie. The blue is, I think, a Spotlight yarn, like cotton and acrylic blend. I think it's 50% cotton and 50% acrylic. The blue is definitely a thicker yarn than the beige is, and I definitely noticed that after I had knit the collar and started working on the body. I think the Safran is like a fingering / sport weight, but this is definitely like a heavy DK weight. But I think altogether you can't really tell. So this is called the Sunday Morning Romper, and I think it does have a Ravelry page, but I couldn't purchase it through Ravelry. I had to purchase it through Etsy instead. But I think if you wanted it in your library, the designer could send it to you. I thought this would be a great basic pattern to have as a go-to for baby gift knits. There's so many ways you can modify it. The pattern does come with instructions for long sleeves, but obviously you can make them short. That's what I'm planning on doing for this summery version. And you could also knit it in a wool, you can knit it in acrylic or something like that for winter, or knit it in a cotton and cotton blend for summer. I didn't do a gauge swatch for this, mainly because I was being a bit lazy and I thought if it turns out a little bit bigger than the size I'm knitting, then the baby will just grow into it. I knit the 1 to 3 month size, but I think based on the measurements, it's coming out closer to the 3 to 6 month size. Baby could come out really big and will fit this a little bit early anyway, so I think it will be okay. I think this will be a great way to use up all of the cotton and cotton blend scraps that I have, like I was talking about, especially for summer babies like this. I think this should also be super easy to care for. It should be fine to just chuck it in the washing machine even on a higher temp. I always feel a bit bad if I give something in a wool, even if it is superwash, you still can't really wash it on a high temperature like you would with the rest of your baby's clothes, and it would have to go in a separate load. So I think something in a sturdy cotton like this will be a little bit better. I don't have kids of my own, but I assume, especially as a first-time parent, you're not really thinking about doing separate loads of laundry and you just want clean clothes for your baby. Here is what the back looks like. It has this really handy keyhole so you can make sure it will fit over baby's head, and then I think you chain like a crochet button loop thing with this and then put a button on here. So once I finish doing the ribbing, I can pick up and do a little bit of the beige for the sleeves, and then I think I'll just do the ribbing also in the blue because I think these colors look really cute together. The pattern has instructions for doing buttonholes in the bottom ribbing here, and you attach buttons onto the back. I just omitted that because I think I'm going to do poppers instead, just to make it a little bit easier to get on and off. I did knit this on the recommended 3.5mm needles and then have done all the ribbing on 3. Because this blue is quite a bit thicker than the beige yarn, I did knit these blue stripes on 3mm needles as well. You can probably see that it is a little bit more of a dense fabric in the blue stripes, but I don't think a baby is going to care when it has this on. I think it still looks really cute. So I should be able to finish this in the next couple of days, maybe even this evening if I have a few hours to sit down and knit the sleeves, and I just think it's going to look really cute. I'm really looking forward to being able to give this to her. So that's everything I have to share today. Thanks very much for watching until the end. I would love to hear what you've been working on as well. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your day or evening, and I will see you next time. Bye!